I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like right here at Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball, very happy to be your host. Been checking out a number of things that have brought again to my attention this confluence, this overlap of colonialisms between what I've been arguing and others have been arguing is happening here in the United States with the settler colonial project and its impact on African America or Black people here in the United States, and with what is obviously on display in real time in the most overt, genocidal, expressive way in Gaza. So I want to play a couple of clips from just what we've been all checking out here lately and just draw out the highlight real quick. Before we do, though, I do want to go back to my own argument so that just so we're clear how I'm seeing this, and then where you all see something similar and want to build, you can add on. Let's keep it going. And when you obviously see something that you disagree with or have a critique of, you can let me know that too. But at least we're clear where I'm coming from. So this is actually from my first book, I Mix What I Like, a mixtape manifesto, where I was building off of the earlier work, not the later work, of Albert Memmi and his colonial pyramid here. But in particular, I just wanted to pull this up because it was, I just noticed that I hadn't remembered this, but one of the epigraphs that I have here is a quote from Black Thought of the Roots from the track Long Time, where he made the point in that track, the ghetto might as well be the Gaza Strip, talking about obviously the struggles here in Black America. He was making this comparison to how I'm going to paraphrase it and how I meant it here in this book, the colonial experience here and what he saw happening and seized probably still, I would think so, more overtly again, in Gaza right now. And just a little bit from the very next page, just again, so because this is really where I'm coming from on this what I'm about to show you here in just a second. But as I noted here, in trying to make the point about the United States being an empire, and then if the United States is an empire, as so many then and now have been willing to acknowledge, then we need to acknowledge that empires don't create free citizens and democracies. They create empire and colonies and subjects. So I was just borrowing from some work here, making the point that empire is also a relationship.
Message.
And this is something that's big for me and how I approach this and understand this. Empire is also a relationship, formal or informal, in which one state controls the effective political sovereignty of another political society. And I was using that point then as I was trying to construct the argument around Black people being a nation and then a colonized nation, whether there's officially recognized, so to speak, and sanctioned geographic borders, or whether it is just a political society, a community that recognizes itself as one, as having a culture, a language, a history, an identity, a common, whether it's geography or not, it could be also a diaspora, but a common heritage and background. And then this, of course, can be arrived at by force, that is this conquering, this domination, by political collaboration, by economic, social, or cultural dependence. Imperialism is simply the process or policy of establishing or maintaining an empire.
Message.
Who was I quoting there? Edward Said, of course. Then also here from the equally great and also unfortunately late Jack O'Dell, and this for me has always been sort of the guiding perspective for me, where Jack O'Dell said, in defining the colonial problem, it is the role of the institutional mechanisms of colonial domination which are decisive. Territory is merely the stage upon which these historically developed mechanisms of super exploitation are organized into a system of oppression. Okay, so for me, again, this approach allows for, in slight and humble, respectful disagreement with Amilcar Cabral, or more recently with Charles Pender Hughes, and perhaps even her approach, Kianga Yamada Taylor. For me, there's no need for there to be a contiguous border in which a group is colonized. It is a relationship that exists and reaches beyond the immediate again, sanctioned, recognized, or literal geographic proximity. For me, it's not necessary. So Pender Hughes, for instance, in our discussion of a couple years ago, and in his work argues that Black people are colonies within the United States. And for me, because there Black people are pockets all over the country, for me, that's less important than what Odell is pointing to there and Saeed is pointing to there about a relationship. So that said, I've been a lot lately again in Electronic Intifada the other day, where they had a discussion with Craig Mokhiber, I think is how you say his name, formerly of the UN. I'll put the link in the description so you can see their whole discussion where Mokhiber talks about his recent resignation because of what was reported the other day about the UN's statement on the destruction of Palestine, which basically just calls for a slowdown. It doesn't calls for a ceasefire, or doesn't, as we were talking about with Renee yesterday, talk anything about the illegality of supporting and encouraging and carrying out genocide. I want us to look very quickly at this short segment of this question being put to Mokhiber and his response in explaining what he sees happening in Gaza, and you'll almost see immediately where I'm coming from, and that I just wanted to highlight and point to and call out and emphasize. So let's check this out.
It's clear that what's happening now in Gaza is genocide. Do you think that the same description applies to what is happening currently right now in the West Bank?
I think it's the same genocide. So I think there's a specific set of military acts that Israel is carrying out to facilitate genocide in the Gaza portion of Palestine. But it's not another genocide happening on the West Bank. It's an extension of genocide that's happening on the West Bank.
Message.
So the attacks on villages, the wholesale ethnic cleansing of many villages just since October, but also earlier in the year that I was originally complaining about at the UN, pogroms by settlers, armed, backed up, sometimes physically accompanied by the Israeli army in carrying out those things on the West Bank, dispossession, settlement activity. All of these things are elements of the broader genocide, which also, by the way, includes persecution of Palestinians who live inside the Green Line into what is now Israel, and obviously in Jerusalem, occupied Jerusalem as well. So it's all a part of the same genocide that's being perpetrated there. It's not, there's often an attempt to try to separate these things because of geographic separation, which is by design. But I see it as I see it as evidence of the same genocide that's being perpetrated. The tactics are slightly different, they're very different, but the end result is the same. Look at the specific acts that are taking place in the West Bank and the stated intent of Israeli officials, and you can only conclude that that is a part of the genocide that we see unfolding in Gaza.
So there where you see Mokhiber asked just about the similarities or differences between Gaza and the West Bank and those geographically separated communities, he's saying no, the relationship is consistent. It is all of Palestine that is being colonized, and the separation of Gaza and West Bank is immaterial to that relationship. So when I heard that, I said that is what I have been wanting to say and would have wanted to say, would want to continue to say and highlight when considering what's happening here in the United States to Black people. And I think that what Mokhiber is pointing to in terms of how we understand what's happening in Gaza is really important in helping us even understand more about the relationship we have here and that others have here to the United States. But another version of this came up in a recent discussion that we also praised yesterday with Renee on Millennials Are Killing Capitalism's platform and their birthday tribute to the late, great Kuwasi Balagoon. Link is also in the show description. Check that out. But listen to this short segment here, this short piece here from Ashanti Alston. And again, I think
we really understand that these systems that we face, these oppressive systems, will not reform themselves. You can't vote them out of existence. you can't do none of them other things that you are hoping that you can change the world. The anarchism for me, especially, that is all kind of anarchism, but because we got Kuwasi here and myself, I am still a firm believer that we ain't getting rid of these monsters without picking up the gun. Maybe a lot different, but it ain't gonna happen without it. People have come to the conclusions on too many levels that those were the old days. Well, we can't do them again, but tell that to the Palestinians, right? Tell that to them that, oh, well, maybe we can do this nonviolently, because they're all, like the Christian Palestinians, there's their formations that are really on a nonviolent thing, right on. But for us here, and I think any empire, it ain't coming down no other way. So face it and figure out what you have to do in order to put yourselves in a position to really contribute to the overcoming of these oppressions, at the same time that our dreams, like the Zapatistas say, a world where many worlds exist, can come forward. So for me, the anarchisms point to the internalized oppressions, that allow for the Kuwasis out there, whether they be male, female, trans, or whatever, to know that they are human, and they are as involved in this struggle as anybody else. It takes us to a much deeper level of struggle than anything we have faced before, because now man, the concept of man and concept of government, the concept of nation, the concept of empire is all getting ready to explode. And it gives us an opportunity now to redefine who we are, not only as human beings, but in relationship to the whole fucking planet and the whole cosmos. That for us to think that we can still do this by these nonviolent methods alone is crazy. And so for example, during our times, we liberated people from prisons, we expropriated from banks, we dealt with landlords, dope dealers, everybody. I don't know how people in the movement today can figure we're going to bring this together without the capacity to deal with those levels too, unless we're waiting for George Soros to just pump us with nonprofit dollars. It's crazy, So I feel like that's a Kuwasi, let's just deal with this as it is. I know it doesn't sound good, but if we want our humanity free, we will face this as it is, allow all kinds of expressions of liberation, resistance struggles to come forward, but don't get bamboozled into thinking that it's got to be one way. I don't care if you're going to the UN bodies, the international bodies, you want to declare this genocide. I don't give a fuck about none of that. We have got to develop the capacity to get rid of these systems of oppression, but especially, and this is a Amor Cabral thing too, especially the ones that are inside of us, because we're born in this mess. That means that we're messy as well, but there's still a way out.
Now listen, that's called my boy. You know nothing about that.
So the only thing I wanted to add here, just in terms of the overlaps and parallels that I saw in these various clips and discussions, and please check them all out, especially that tribute to Kuwasi Balagoon. It was phenomenal. Shout out again to Jared and Millennials Are Killing Capitalism for that. But there's all of this discussion about Palestinians being, even before all of this, in an open air prison, the largest open air prison in the world. Then again, I'm thinking of Tip of the Spear and Orasami's point about prisons here being the re-captivity of an already colonized population. And I noted here that one key difference between the overtness of the colonization in Palestine and what's happening here is our proximity, pun intended, based on what I was saying earlier, to the settler colonial ruling elite here in the United States, and the increased sophistication and pervasiveness of the psychological warfare and propaganda that we suffer here, which, much like we've talked about before about political prisoners, George Jackson and others, gives them that paradoxical or contradictory clarity of the situation that we still struggle with out here, given the relative freedom and just the saturation of the psychological warfare and the branding and the marketing and the all the other euphemisms. So that's it. Thanks for checking this out. Let's please keep chopping it up and considering all that we can about how we can support others in struggle and continue to struggle ourselves to improve our condition in this world. As always, as Fred Hampton used to say, peace only if you're willing to fight for it. Please do like, share, subscribe, put this in your socials, support our Patreon at blackpowermedia.com.
The fuck is he talking about?
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy and defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.